In today's video, we will make a meal prep version of Domino's Cheesy Bread that tastes way better. It has 40% less calories, 33% more protein, and takes just 15 minutes of your time to make. You can even freeze them to be able to reheat them at a moment's notice. Let's get into it. Today is Sunday, or meal prep day for the upcoming week, so I will show you my process, but this is a very forgiving recipe and can be easily modified to fit your needs and free time. Our dough needs time to build flavor, so I will start with that. To make it, all that is needed is a bowl and a spoon. For my stand mix owners, I will show you a method to make use of it coming up as well. Into a large bowl, we will add 500 grams all-purpose flour, 125 grams vital wheat gluten, 10 grams salt, and 8 grams instant yeast. Whisk these together so they are evenly dispersed. Then add 425 grams of water and mix with a spoon until the dough is giving you a hard time. Then get your hand soaking wet and start pushing into the dough. The goal here is to get all of the dry parts hydrated, so I will push into the dough, flip it over, push into it again, as well as scrape the sides of the bowl to make sure everything gets wet. If you need to wet your hand again because the dough is sticking, that's allowed in this kitchen. Once the dough is looking like this, cover it and go distract yourself for 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, our dough looks like this, and it's time for a stretch and fold, which really just means pulling on the dough 4 times. We'll start by getting our hands soaking wet, lifting up one side of the dough until it doesn't want to stretch anymore, then folding it onto itself. Give the bowl a quarter turn and repeat until the entire dough has been through a full stretch and fold cycle. By the 4th pull, the dough won't stretch nearly as much. That is a great sign and shows the gluten developing before our very eyes. Flip the dough over and use your wet hand to slide the dough into the bowl like this, which causes more friction, helping it to develop even more gluten. Our dough should be looking like this, and it's time to cover again for another 20 minutes. Now is a great time to get our cheeses grated. Freshly shredded cheese is a must in my opinion. If you use all pre-shredded cheese, you will take about 20 to 30% of the flavor away from the final dish. It's called cheesy bread for a reason. Now, cheesy bread is different than pizza because 1, there is no sauce, and 2, it includes a blend of cheeses. This includes both mozzarella and cheddar. Because of that, we will need 4 different cheeses: part skim mozzarella, fat-free mozzarella, 2% cheddar cheese, and fat-free cheddar cheese. Unfortunately, there isn't blocks of fat-free cheddar at the store, so I will have to use pre-shredded for this recipe. I will go ahead and shred all 3 cheeses on a large hold side of the grater, which takes me about 7 minutes. Then I will go play with my dog for 13 minutes since the dough is sitting, doing all the work for us. 20 minutes has passed and now our dough is looking like this. We will perform another set of stretch and folds just like last time. As you can see, our dough is looking smooth as butter and is ready to get divided into meals for the week. If you have a stand mixer, you can add all the dough ingredients straight into the bowl and mix on setting 2 for 4 minutes, followed by setting 4 for 6 minutes. Cover the bowl for 20 minutes and now you can resume with us bowl and spooners. I'd like to put the bowl on a scale, turn it on, take the dough out, and see how much it weighs. Then I could divide by 5 and have an even amount of dough for each day. However, just so you know, each dough ball should weigh around 210 grams. I will then grab 5 of these high-sided plastic containers, which fits most of my meal prep doughs perfectly and I would highly recommend, and lightly spray each one with oil. Then we will take a piece of dough, flatten it out like a pancake, fold each side of the dough into the middle, and flip it over. Finish it off by pulling it towards your body and letting the friction of the table shape it into a ball. Turn the dough and repeat until a circle is formed. I then like to flip it back over and pinch the edges to sort of seal the dough. This is what we should look like once finished. Repeat that process for all remaining pieces of dough, put a lid on them, date them, and refrigerate. You can leave one out if you would like to eat one that night, but since I make these for meal prep, I won't make one until the next day. 24 hours later, before I head to the gym, I will take 2 of my doughs out of the fridge and holy shit, look how much it has risen. This shows the strength and flavor it has built over the last 24 hours. I will show you why I pulled 2 out very soon. For now, I'll just leave them on the counter while I drink my pre-workout and head to the gym. If you want more energy and focus during your workout, in turn burning more calories, I would check out a high-quality pre-workout like Gorilla Mode. I have been using it for 3 years now, and they recently just made their formula even better with over 33 grams of active ingredients per serving. If you want to check it out, you can use code E4CM for 10% off your entire order. When I arrive back, or about 2 to 3 hours after it's taken out of the fridge, you can see my dough has risen to the very top of the container and is ready to be shaped and stuffed. That is the beauty of all my pizza recipes. You can go do whatever you want for hours, and when you arrive back, a meal is ready to be made in just minutes. Before shaping the dough, I want to get our oven preheating to 450 degrees and prep the cheese. This will help streamline the process from stretching to stuffing to baking. I'm going to grab the cheese I prepped yesterday and get a plate on a scale. To it, I will add 35 grams fat-free mozzarella, 35 grams part skim mozzarella, 12 grams fat-free cheddar, 12 grams 2% cheddar, 12 grams fat-free mozzarella, and 12 grams part skim mozzarella. Since I am making two, everything I do for the build of the cheesy bread will be done twice, but I will instruct like we are just making one so it's easier to follow along. Like this video. Now that our cheese is portioned out, we just need to mix the 12 grams fat-free cheeses together as well as the low-fat cheeses. This will make sure both kinds are evenly distributed in the recipe. The cheese is finished, so on to our dough. We will push down to deflate it and pour about 5 grams cornmeal on top. Pull the dough out so the oiled side is facing up and pour another 5 grams of cornmeal on top, making sure to spread the cornmeal around. Why cornmeal? This is exactly what Domino's uses, and I think it adds great texture and crunch to the cheesy bread. Using the tips of my fingers, I'm going to poke and stretch the dough at the same time. Then we will allow gravity to do most of the work for us. I'll pick up the dough by the edges and spin it in a circle. This will help stretch out the dough while also keeping an even thickness of dough throughout the cheesy bread. The best way to do this is to alternate between using gravity, then putting it back down, and spreading with the fingertips. Once I have all the dough looking like this, I will hold down the middle of it and tug on one corner at a time. This will get the last little bit of stretchable dough to take shape, and we should have somewhat of a square that looks like this. To be a bit more accurate, it is about an 8 by 8 incher. These doughs are ready to be stuffed, similar to the 140 recipes that are stuffed in my cookbook. These recipes have helped countless people lose weight, and they taste like the real high-calorie versions. The perfect example is my cheesecake that everyone is raving about every time I open my DMs and can't stop eating. If you want recipes early and a book that keeps on growing, click the link in the pinned comment and use code E4CM to get 10% off the book. I will take the 35 grams of the fat-free cheese and layer it on the half of the dough closest to my body, leaving about a ½ inch of space along the entire perimeter of the dough. This will be important in a second. Then layer the 35 gram pile of part skim cheese right on top of it. Taking the top half of the dough, pull it over the cheese and line up the edges so it looks like a half circle. Pinch along the edges to seal. I will then pick up the cheese-filled dough and let the weight of it do a little more stretching. It only takes a couple of seconds. When I put it back down and measure it, the cheesy bread comes in at about 10 inches of pure pleasure. But we aren't done yet. We will put it off to the side just for a second. To measure how much cornmeal is actually used for the macros, every test I placed all the extra cornmeal into a small bowl and weighed it out. As you can see, there is nearly 12 grams left of the 20 grams used, so that is about 4 grams of cornmeal that actually stuck to each cheesy bread, but I rounded up to 5 grams for the macros just in case. We will then break off roughly a 10 by 6 inch piece of parchment paper and place the cheesy bread down on top of it. Before topping our bread, we need to pre-slice it into 8 pieces. All we have to do for that is grab a dough scraper or a knife and cut the cheesy bread in half, cut those halves in half, and cut those halves in half. Push the pieces back together and then layer on the fat-free cheese mix, followed by the lower fat cheese mix. We always put the fat-free cheese on the bottom because 1, you want your taste buds to hit the higher fat cheese first for more flavor, and 2, and more importantly, the higher fat cheese melts into the fat-free cheese, essentially causing it to soak up some of that fat and give it more flavor after baking. These are ready to go into the oven. You can use a baking sheet to cook these on and they will turn out great, but a baking steel is always preferred. The browning and crunch you get from a baking steel is unparalleled and it lasts a lifetime. I can also fit both these cheesy breads on the baking steel comfortably, making it super easy to eat one tonight and freeze one for later, which is exactly why I am making 2 at the exact same time right now. Cook the cheesy breads for 12 to 16 minutes or until brown to your preference. When there's about 5 minutes left, I like to make what is the most important part of this recipe that will take this from an 8 to a 10. Fresh garlic butter. To start, I will grab a fresh bunch of parsley and chop up a handful worth of leaves. Then I will put the parsley into a bag so I could use it over the next few days without needing to chop it up every single day. Grab a bowl and add 6 grams of butter, preferably Kerrygold. It is one of those products that you can taste the difference and the extra cost is well worth it. Then press in 1.5 grams of fresh garlic. To combine these two flavors together, we need to heat them up in the microwave for about 20 to 30 seconds, or until the butter is melted. I'll mix the garlic and butter together, then add in 2 grams Parmigiano Reggiano, a half gram of salt, and a pinch of parsley. Mix the bowl again to coat all the ingredients in melted garlic butter and add back to the microwave for 6 to 8 seconds. This will help all the flavors mingle together, and I will give it one last mix. Oh, and if you are making 2 like I am, just double all of the ingredients listed for the garlic butter. Like clockwork, our cheesy bread is ready to come out of the oven and it is looking like an absolute dime piece. Just look at how much it rises and browns while it is in the oven. Absolute perfection. The last thing we have to do is add our garlic butter. You can use a spoon to do this, but I prefer to use a brush. I can take my time spreading the butter on the outside crust first, making sure to hit every crevice, and then I work my way inside. This will ensure garlic butter in every single bite and is well worth the 2 to 3 minutes it takes to do. Then I will evenly spread out the garlic parm parsley combo to make sure I am getting some of that in every piece too. And after the garlic butter is spread, it is time to really enjoy the rest of our night together.
Here we are, all alone, you and me, privacy.
After me and baby girl spend some quality time with each other, I take my other room temperature cheesy bread and place her in a vacuum seal. Make sure not to seal too tight or you will crush the dough. As soon as most of the air is out of the bag, I stop the vacuum. Then put in the freezer, and when it is time to eat, I throw her back into a 450-degree oven for 12 to 14 minutes. It comes out just as good, if not better, because of the higher crunch factor than when I originally made it. You can make these all on the same day if you want them in the freezer for your eating pleasure, but the dough does gain more flavor each day it is in the fridge. Personally, I prefer to let the flavor increase over the week. This cheesy bread lives up to its name with cheese pulls in every single piece you tear off, and with garlic butter in every bite, the flavor is off the charts. Add some marinara sauce from my Detroit pizza or some ranch for a dip and you have the perfect 1-2 punch. Now every day after dinner, I have been piping a half-pound slice of protein cheesecake for dessert, and in this video here, I show you how to make it. It has over 230 grams of protein and is extremely easy to make. I'll see you there. Until next time, deuces.